Hey warriors, scan the room and the screens you live in. A quiet kind of captivity has crept in, not with chains, but with chatter that never stops and feeds on your attention like a parasite with a smiling face, pushing you to swipe, switch, and skim until 5 minutes of stillness feels like 5 hours underwater. Look closely at the faces around you and you'll spot the glaze, the faint haze, the subtle turbulence hidden behind forced smiles, where people don't choose their thoughts so much as they borrow them from trending noise. Reaction has replaced reflection, and that is where personal power leaks away minute by minute. Your mind isn't frail because you lack grit. It's strained because constant input drowns out your own signal. You're not exhausted. You're saturated. You're not unambitious. You're unfocused. In that static, your unrealized strength trickles out of sight. And the game of power, which always starts in a quiet room inside your head, stalls before it begins. A Florentine strategist saw this centuries ago. The most formidable person isn't always the strongest body or the biggest bank account. It's the one who sees clearly when others squint through fog. The difference between wise and foolish lives in clarity. The capacity to cut through distortion and hold what matters in the light long enough to guide action. Picture a blade. Blunt steel bends and shatters against resistance, but a honed edge slides through obstacles with minimal force. Your mind is that edge. Every ping, rumor, and pointless tug blunts it. Every deliberate minute of attention sharpens it. The question worth asking isn't how much you can handle, but how sharp you dare to become. Today isn't about thinking harder. It's about thinking cleaner and colder, taming distractions with methods some call dark psychology, not because they're evil, but because they deal with the unseen currents under behavior, so you can harden your focus, silence weakness, and rise above the static that makes most people stumble. By the time this message settles in, focus won't be a trick you perform. It will be a posture you inhabit, steady, cool, intentional. When your mind belongs to you, manipulation loses its hooks. When you learn to pause, you won't be dragged by impulses dressed up as emergencies. You'll read the room without saying a word, forecast moves before they happen, and operate like a quiet tactician in a noisy arena. Write this down somewhere visible and speak it in your own tone. My mind is my weapon. And understand this first principle of focus. The real engine of concentration is control. Motivation is a mood, and moods fade. Control is command, and command endures. An ordinary mind drifts from spark to spark, chasing quick thrills that don't add up to anything. A trained mind moves with intention, which is the art of pointing your attention like a laser and keeping it there even when the world rattles the glass. Distraction doesn't wreck you all at once. It sands away depth a thin layer at a time until you can't sit with a thought long enough to find its center. There is a modern confusion between activity and impact, between a busy calendar and a meaningful life. It feels productive to juggle 10 half-finished ideas. But motion is not the same as movement. True strength shows up in stillness, the capacity to pour mental energy into a single channel while everything else fades to the edges. Focus isn't doing more. It's doing what matters while cutting everything that doesn't, cleanly, quickly, without guilt. Every stray thought draws a little power off the line. Every deliberate thought feeds the current back into purpose. Elite focus operates from silence rather than noise. People mistake that calm for passivity, but it's intelligence in motion, talking less, seeing more, acting with precision when action is required and not 5 seconds sooner. You'll notice something unsettling when you start holding your attention with that kind of discipline. People often judge by surfaces because surfaces are easy to see. Few notice the currents underneath. Someone who moves with quiet certainty doesn't need to flash credentials, because composure itself is a credential. Power becomes visible in how they direct their attention. Real focus is sculpted by subtraction, not addition. It grows sharper when you trim the sources that spike you. Unnecessary inputs, pointless commentary, emotional bait, low-quality stimulation. The process can pinch because silence will reveal what noise used to hide. The hard truths, the incomplete work, the fears you'd scroll past. But clarity is born in that silence, and with it come patience, precision, and the subtle grace of control. Most minds are open windows in a storm. Everything blows in. The mind that learns to shut the window on nonsense becomes steady whether the weather is calm or wild. When concentration deepens, perception reorganizes. Choices get cleaner and faster. Emotional turbulence loses leverage. Attention stops bending under pressure and begins to move only when you choose. That is the mark of a powerful mind. Deliberate awareness. It isn't loud, but it radiates. People notice without knowing why, because in a culture addicted to reaction, calm concentration looks like authority. Clarity produces command. A mind that knows exactly what it wants doesn't compete for scraps. It sets direction. Focused awareness changes environments, influences outcomes, and earns respect without asking. This is invisible control. Not control that shouts and pushes, but control that reorients the field with quiet exactness. A clear mind doesn't need to announce itself. It is felt. Say it with your chest and say it in the comments if that's your ritual. Calm is control. Now, subtractive thinking. Remove before you add. The modern brain worships accumulation. More tips, more books, more tabs, more goals, more content, under the illusion that volume becomes wisdom. But minds don't sharpen by piling on. They sharpen by carving away. Clarity grows not by what you collect, but by what you discard. The fool adds layers until weight crushes structure. The wise clear the excess to expose the skeleton of truth. Mental strength comes less from new facts and more from removing the fragments that dilute understanding. Confusion is often self-inflicted. Mistaking opinions for knowledge, trends for truth, gossip for signal, alerts for urgency, and other people's emotional residue for your own perspective. Every tolerated distraction is a small surrender. Subtractive thinking is the discipline of cutting before building, clearing before stacking, detaching from hollow influences, and stripping away the irrelevant until only the essential remains. This discipline isn't soft. It is surgical. It cuts through sentimentality, vanity, and clinging. It interrogates assumptions until they confess. Many avoid this because it demands confronting the clutter they've used as a personality. But truth often hides under layers of self-deception. The removal begins with simple awareness, spotting useless conversations, emotional entanglements that drain, comparisons that poison, and the background hum of notifications that hijack attention. Each one must be called what it is and refused. Society celebrates addition because it feels like progress, but real progress often looks like less. Less noise, fewer commitments, cleaner targets. Subtractive thinking is like wiping fog off a mirror. Suddenly, the outline returns. Decisions firm up. Time stops leaking into triviality. Those who master this seem mysterious because they speak less and act selectively. Their restraint reads as coldness to the reckless, but restraint is simply clarity under pressure. You cannot dodge chaos by pretending it isn't there. You manage chaos by removing the fuel that feeds it. When the mind is stripped of clutter, external disorder loses its teeth. Subtractive thinking turns raw intelligence into accuracy. The fewer distractions you permit inside the perimeter, the sharper your perception becomes. This isn't emptiness, it's concentrated awareness. People who practice it move with quiet efficiency, unbothered by noise, crystal clear about aim. Nothing can easily confuse a mind that has learned to let go of what doesn't serve. If you need a line to ground this habit, write, "Less is clarity." Then practice it. It will feel like loss at first, then like lightness, and finally like leverage. Control your mind, control your life. Every durable form of external power sits on a foundation of internal command. A person who can't direct thought becomes a puppet for mood, impulse, and circumstance. There is a popular myth that balance means dividing attention between comfort and conquest. But comfort untended becomes decay. Real strength shows up in the discipline to govern thoughts even when feelings clamor for chaos. Consider your thoughts as the advisors around a leader. If those advisors are petty, frightened, and erratic, the leader looks the same. Mental control is the root of personal authority. And without it, the tallest exterior achievement collapses at the first tremor. Fear twists decisions. Anger warps judgment. Anxiety steals presence. Reaction masquerades as awareness. Step back and become the observer behind the mind. The distance between what you feel and what you do is your dominion. Power lives in the pause. That fraction of a second where impulse loses breath and clarity speaks. A mind that obeys emotion is a servant. A mind that instructs emotion is a ruler. Constant success favors those who update conduct with changing conditions. But adaptation doesn't mean panic. Under pressure, the controlled mind adjusts without abandoning its center. Every feeling becomes data, not destiny. Most let moods grab the wheel and then regret the route. Those who train control move after thinking, not before. Their calm in turbulence isn't a gift of temperament. It's the residue of practice. Thousands of small moments of restraint. To master the mind is to master attention, emotion, and time. Attention decides what you notice. Emotion decides how it lands. Time decides when you act. Lose command over any of the three and weakness enters through the gap. Structure makes control repeatable. Desire without system burns out. Habits are the scaffolding of command. Consistent self-observation reduces surprise, and reduced surprise breeds strength. Your mind learns the cadence of your leadership and begins to follow orders naturally. As control grows, perception broadens. When thoughts stop stampeding, patterns in people's behavior reveal themselves. You'll see manipulation before its mask is on. Emotional traps will look like traps instead of thrill rides. Influence expands quietly. The less obvious your control, the more potent it becomes. Obvious emotion invites exploitation. Composed uncertainty generates mystery, and mystery generates sway. People fear what they can't easily read. A trained mind is hard to read and easy to respect. Control is not ice, it's refinement. It turns reaction into command and chaos into coherence. Every empire, large or personal, begins in the discipline of an organized inner world. Remember this line and leave it where you'll see it. Control creates power. Now, precision thinking. This is the gap between activity and impact. Many spray effort across 100 half-targets and then call the fragments progress. Sharp minds do the opposite. They identify one clear objective, then pour every ounce of attention into it until reality bends. Speed is less important than accuracy. A mind without precision is a blade without an edge, full of potential but unable to cut. Precision begins with observation. It is the art of noticing the pattern behind apparent randomness, of catching small details that hint at larger shifts, of connecting events before the connection is obvious. Those who think loosely depend on luck. Those who think precisely shape outcomes. Dominance doesn't always require force. It often requires understanding of motives, of timing, of leverage. When you can dissect why people move, anticipate the next square, and pick your moment, you stop competing and start directing. Here is how to harden your focus until it becomes a habit rather than a burst. Start with a stimulus fast each day. For 90 minutes, cut every notification, silence the phone, close all tabs unrelated to the task, and treat interruptions as if they cost cash. Keep a single sheet on your desk with the one outcome for that block printed in 7 words or less. Design your environment so it forces the behavior you want. Apps off the home screen, social logins removed from the browser, headphones that signal do not disturb. Practice tactical stillness. 10 minutes of blank paper thinking where you write the hardest question facing you and list only 3 moves that move the needle. End the day with a 2-minute review. What deserved attention today and what stole it. None of this requires new information. It requires fewer leaks. Small, repeatable, subtractive moves sharpen the edge. Add toughness by training the pause. Set a trigger phrase for friction. Hold the line, and use it anytime you feel the pull to react. In that beat, ask 3 checks. What is the signal? What is the bait? And what is my play? The first preserves clarity. The second spots manipulation. The third restores agency. Use a personal creed, short and visceral, to reset midday. Something like calm over noise or slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Build a keystone habit around sleep and light. Hard cutoffs on screens an hour before bed. Morning sunlight in the first hour of waking. And a consistent anchor wake time, because a tired brain is a suggestible brain. Schedule solitude as a meeting with yourself, not as a leftover. Short walks without audio count. True insight shows up when the channel is quiet. Cut with compassion, but cut clean. People will try to hand you their urgency. If it doesn't serve your single aim, you can care without carrying. Say no without theater. Let your calendar reflect your priorities rather than your fears. Trim the circles that keep you in loops of chatter and outrage. Keep high-caliber minds near. Not because you need cheerleaders, but because serious people can serve your attention by default. Treat your attention like property. You wouldn't leave your front door open all night for strangers. Don't leave your mind open to every intruder with a vibration and a preview line. Every day you either defend your perimeter or someone else writes your story. When the edge is sharp, the world looks different. Opportunities become either aligned or irrelevant. You stop chasing because you are aimed. You grow allergic to vague goals and adore specific commitments. You tighten feedback loops, short cycles of action, review, adjustment. You measure progress by reduced friction and deeper work, not by the number of tasks. The world will call you extreme. Let it. Excellence is uncommon by definition. You will be misunderstood. Accept it. Influence often arrives dressed as silence. You become the person who says less and accomplishes more, who arrives prepared and leaves early, who treats attention as sacred and time as non-renewable. In a landscape of noise, that posture communicates louder than any speech. Remember the through line: clarity before volume, subtraction before addition, control before display, precision before speed. Hold a simple stack, see clearly, cut cleanly, move deliberately. Make your mind a blade and keep honing. The dull moments will tempt you to pick up your phone or fill the space with anything. Don't. Hold the discomfort. On the other side is depth. And depth compounds. What you repeat becomes who you are. If you want a final line to anchor the shift, try this one and make it yours. Be the focus, not the noise. Then go live it with calm, cold, deliberate action. Precision begins where waste ends. And its heart is disciplined economy. Fewer words, fewer motions, fewer choices, each carried out with clean certainty and no spillage of effort. Ordinary thinkers worship busyness as if volume could substitute for impact, while serious minds measure by outcomes and accept that effectiveness is a craft of subtraction, not spectacle. The person trained in exactness works like a master surgeon: one steady cut, minimal disturbance, controlled bleeding. Because flailing costs advantage and timing multiplies it. Impatience tries to ride whatever chance passes by, but the precise creator engineers openings and chooses when to step through. A prudent leader adjusts with the season without surrendering the compass, and thought obeys the same law. Update models, never abandon aim. Adaptation without leakage of purpose marks mastery, while confusion arrives whenever feelings blur the lens. Clarity demands a little distance from heat, the way good optics require space to focus. When emotion wraps itself around thinking, judgment fogs over. Calm observation, neither numb nor naive, catches what excitement and fear hide, turning uncertainty into leverage that can be applied at will. Quiet is not hesitation. Quiet is preparation, the deliberate gathering of signals before a decisive cognitive thrust. An exact mind withholds speech until grasp is secure, holds still until variables are counted, and delays commitment until facts lock. From the outside, restraint can look like slowness, but when movement comes, it lands where it must, once, cleanly. Other people's errors become usable maps. Missed assumptions, lazy habits, and brittle egos outline routes forward. Failure is not a verdict but a tutor with a sharp tongue, and the attentive student turns every misstep into an operating manual for the next attempt. Observation becomes a blade when it's yoked to pattern recognition and repeated testing, because you learn to predict rather than to chase. The essence of immediacy is not impulsiveness, but readiness. Clear, measured, and timely. Real precision slices through clutter like a quiet directive. No fanfare, just force. While the crowd drowns in options and noise, the precise mind keeps sight locked on the target, dismissing theater and vanity metrics, protecting attention like it's a sovereign territory. With exactness comes a form of silent authority that needs no presentation deck. People trust those who do not rush, who move with intent, who carry decisions with the posture of someone who knows the cost of each choice. Calm focus projects an invisible field. It signals competence without shouting, discipline without cruelty, and preparedness without panic. Nothing seizes a room like a mind that moves only as needed and never twice in the same patch, because redundancy wastes momentum. In such a posture, language becomes condensed metal. Fewer words, heavier weight. Actions grow sparse yet final, leaving little room for doubt or escalation. That kind of thinking resists manipulation because it takes in the whole board before acting and refuses to be baited by urgency that isn't real. In a culture wired for instant reaction and endless stimulus, exactness is a superpower. Quiet, unflashy, and devastatingly accurate. Write this where your eyes will catch it. Precision grants power. Repeat it until your behavior reflects it. Let your standards be easier to see than your opinions, and let your choices speak louder than your explanations. Emotional immunity is the silent armor of the strong mind. Not the absence of feeling, but the refusal to be steered by every gust of inner weather. Most people fold under the weight of their moods and the friction of daily slights. Letting a stray comment, a closed door, or a delayed reply dictate the story they tell themselves. Predictability follows. Easy to agitate, easy to read, easy to control. The instant emotion takes the wheel, judgment goes quiet, and impulse starts driving toward regret. Charlatans thrive on reactivity because those who move from feeling rather than from sense will volunteer to be misled. Immunity is steadiness under heat, composure while the heart pounds, silence in moments when noise would sabotage the mission. Picture a house without walls. Every draft and storm blows through and rearranges the furniture. Unguarded minds live like that. Disciplined minds build invisible walls, not to suppress emotion, but to contain it, to let heat warm the engine without melting the frame. Anger, envy, fear, and doubt are not foes to be banished, but signals to be decoded. Each points to a weak seam that can be reinforced. Awareness is the first line of defense. Naming a feeling without kneeling before it transforms reaction into information. Anger held without explosion reveals power dynamics. Fear walked through on a leash of logic teaches how risk actually behaves. Every episode where emotion rises and self-command holds adds another brick to inner stability, making reactivity less likely the next time. A wise public face can be warm, generous, and human, while the private mind stays rational and strategic enough to protect long-term aims. Modern influence accrues to those who keep their center while others spin. Presence itself becomes persuasive. When someone throws fire, the composed person becomes a mirror. Agitation has to confront its own reflection and control flips without a fight. Emotional immunity is the art of absorbing turbulence without projecting it outward, breaking the feedback loop that agitators depend on to sustain control. Manipulation feeds on your spikes. Starve it. Study the grip points, label the hooks, and decide where you will never be grabbed again. Every environment will test this discipline. Stinging words, misplaced trust, missed chances, tangled rumors. These are traps seeded by circumstance to siphon attention. The immune mind treats them like data sets, pulling out patterns that forecast future risks, extracting rules rather than marinating in hurt. This lens converts pain into plan. Do not confuse control with coldness. Control is clarity guarded by composure and aligned with purpose. It's engineered through repetition. Each quiet refusal to escalate pours concrete into your foundation. Soon, noise cannot knock you off balance because your responses ride a track you laid deliberately. The emotionally immune person watches the theater of human behavior with level eyes, listening when others shout, observing when others scramble, conserving energy while others burn it to smoke. This is not indifference, it's intelligent allocation of force. Energy spent on reaction is energy stolen from progress. Keep score not of slights but of regained minutes, reclaimed attention, and reinforced boundaries that free you to build. Call this invisible dominance if you like. The elegant art of appearing untouched while quietly shaping outcomes. Immunity converts chaos into opportunity because it keeps the lens clean long enough to see the root that panic hides. Discomfort becomes material, not poison. The steady mind does not broadcast spikes and therefore denies adversaries leverage. Stability produces a light mystery, and mystery produces respect. Because people sense strength where they cannot find handles. Those who will not be rattled become difficult to corner. The world tends to yield slowly at first and then all at once to the person who refuses to bend to its cheap provocations. Anchor a line you can return to when storms pick up. Composure never forfeits. Repeat it not as a slogan but as a directive for behavior, and back it with rituals that keep your system calm. Sleep that respects the brain, breathing that resets the clock, solitude that cleans the channel, movement that discharges static. Your nervous system is a tool. Train it until you can use it on command. Sharpness is a language everyone understands without translation. In an era of volume and bravado, the individual who carries precision, restraint, and composure becomes impossible to ignore. People often confuse applause with esteem, but genuine respect flows toward quiet authority, the aura of control that others can feel before a word is spoken. In the present age, influence does not need raised voices or visible menace. It lives in the subtle discomfort others experience around someone who cannot be coaxed, pushed, or baited. Sharpness radiates power without malice, communicates through conduct rather than slogans, and sets its own benchmark. A person like this does not chase approval because they are busy enforcing standards on themselves. That boundary forces onlookers to either elevate their game or walk away. Each action comes tagged with intent. Each response is calibrated. Each silence is used to harvest more context. This posture earns attention because it wastes none. Unpredictability of the disciplined kind creates caution. When your emotions stay unreadable and your thought process is opaque, people approach with respect. Dominance here is not a matter of force, but of self-governance so exact that others feel it as pressure. The more composed a person becomes, the more magnetic their presence grows. That magnetism isn't cheap charm. It's mastery. The energy of someone who has organized chaos within and therefore interferes less with reality. Presentation matters because humans read surfaces. Everyone sees your stagecraft, few experience your substance. Use that asymmetry on purpose. Reveal only what supports the mission, guard what must be guarded, and let results carry the story. Restraint signals control. Silence implies assurance. Calm suggests dominion over impulse. Sharpness is the twin of timing, knowing when to strike and when stillness will achieve more than motion. In a distracted crowd, quiet precision stands out more than loud ambition because it contrasts like ink on snow. Let patience build your authority. Let others compress themselves to fit around your cadence. Soon they will trim their tone, fold their volume, and check their bravado in your presence because your steadiness forces calibration. That is how respect becomes automatic, earned by the rhythm of your self-discipline, not extracted by demand. People trust those who look unshakable because it signals order in a disorderly world. Guard your boundaries like a fortress with open gates for worthy travelers and closed walls for trespassers. Too much familiarity with your inner workings invites carelessness from observers. Maintain distance with generosity but clarity, so no one forgets the lines. Respect is gravitational around those who hold themselves to a standard that does not wobble with mood. Sharpness does not solicit approval. It compels it by existing. In the end, the untouchable are not threatening. They're excellent. Their focus, calm, and restraint carry more volume than any speech about power. Phrase it how you like, but keep it at hand. Esteem follows clarity. Mistakes are not markers of failure. They are the fingerprints of progress, stamped on the edges of your attempt to expand. Each error, misread, and pang of regret is a coded note from reality revealing what pride tried to hide and what you must strengthen. The fragile flee from their mistakes because they confuse pain with punishment. The strong dissect them because they know discomfort is instruction in an honest voice. The gap between the wise and the naive is not luck, but recognition speed. Noticing the error, extracting the rule, and integrating the fix before the wound hardens into a habit. The world penalizes repetition because repeating what burns you is proof you are not governing yourself. Learning from mistakes is not about wallowing. It is adaptation under pressure. The operator who studies their own missteps becomes more dangerous than the one who never risks, because exposure builds maps that imagination alone cannot supply, and because scars remember what pride forgets. Failure, when interrogated, sharpens judgment in ways comfort never can. A wrong turn exposes a blind spot. A moment of heat reveals where emotion hijacked logic. A leap at the wrong time reveals how timing and preparation dance. The wise rebuild their mental architecture after each hit, swapping brittle assumptions for tested frames. They do not ask for pity or write mythology about bad luck. They analyze sequences, ask, why did this happen under these conditions? And then rewrite procedures so the same setup cannot trap them twice. This work accumulates into a quiet intelligence you cannot buy, earned through consequences, rehearsed through reflection. Every scar becomes an encoded memory for strategy. Every disappointment trains your eye for early warnings. Misfortune is not your enemy when you've prepared to meet it. Fate asserts itself strongest where courage and planning were absent. So read your pain for absent preparations and add them. The more fully you study yourself, the less any outside variable can truly surprise you. Foresight blooms the moment you stop telling stories that excuse your part. Those who analyze their failures methodically become less afraid of uncertainty because they've met their limits, survived them, and learned where to reinforce. While others hide behind alibis, the self-aware begin to predict danger before it arrives. That foresight is a stealth form of dominance. You stop living as a passenger and begin to architect outcomes. Once converted into lessons, mistakes lose their sting and become inoculations against recurrence. The dangerous cost of learning this way is the death of ego illusions. You must accept responsibility without resentment. Many prefer to blame circumstances because accountability requires remodeling the interior, and demolition is loud. But power grows where delusion dies, and credibility follows the leader who can name a fault and fix it. True intelligence is self-correction in motion, small course changes made quickly and often, guided by feedback rather than by vanity. Those who learn faster than they falter evolve until they feel unbreakable. Not because they never miss, but because missing no longer terrifies them. Resilience rests on self-education via discomfort. The mistake itself is rarely fatal. The insistence on refusing its lesson creates the real hazard. Study your collapses with the same care you study your wins, and the pattern that once blindsided you will become a known hazard you know how to bypass. Control the repetition, and you control much of the damage life can inflict. When you are no longer embarrassed by your past because you have metabolized it into skill, manipulators lose a favorite weapon against you. This is how a sharp mind comes to move in quiet. Cutting distractions, refusing vanity, and investing attention in what returns value. In a society that confuses noise for progress, each undistracted moment becomes a small act of rule over chaos. First you secure your perimeter, then you project influence, and eventually you steer outcomes without saying much at all. Transformation begins at the moment. Reaction gives way to anticipation. When focus firms into something durable, when calm hardens into armor and discipline moves from choice to instinct, that is the threshold where the mind stops being buffeted by weather and begins to bend weather toward purpose. Those who reach this line walk differently. They catch what others say between words. They read intent through posture. They time their moves so accurately that hesitation becomes an ally rather than a habit. They no longer need to prove brilliance because control speaks for them. They dwell in the penumbra of power, present, collected, softly commanding. If this message sparked something, honor the ignition not with performative agreement, but with behavior that can be measured. Restructure your inputs. Write a single aim for each work block. Practice blank page thinking. Close loops nightly. Remove one distraction each day until you feel the edge. Every substantial change starts as awareness, then becomes a schedule, and finally grows into identity. Leave a trace for yourself and for anyone who walks with you on this path. Share what helps, not for applause, but to build a circle where attention is treated as sacred ground. The mind you cultivate is the instrument that shapes your days, and its edge determines how cleanly you can cut through resistance. Keep tightening your craft. Clarity before volume, subtraction before addition, control before display, precision before speed. Hold a simple triad. See truly, cut cleanly, move deliberately. Expect boredom and use it. Expect anxiety and frame it. Expect setbacks and map them. The phone will vibrate, the world will shout, and fear will dress up as urgency. Your edge is forged the moment you choose the work over the noise. Live by a final line that feels like steel in your mouth. A honed mind slices through everything. Breathe it, rehearse it, and then let your actions confirm it. If you need a closing creed to anchor the day, claim this one so it becomes muscle memory. My mind is the strongest blade.